Hey guys, welcome back to a little bit of Jojo. So here we're going to be painting a Deathly Hallows inspired piece. So I have my vinyl already placed and these are the colors I'm using. I'll go ahead and list them in the description box below so you can see exactly what they are. I know this part goes a little fast. So I'm just placing a light, medium, and dark shade of gray in my little paint tray. And then I'm also using a little bit of red, and I have a sparkly gray which dries more like a silver. I really like these colors because they remind me of the Deathly Hallows. Very somber with, I don't know, I just felt like including some red as well. So this is Target's Handmade Modern Paint. I really like the texture of these, and you can paint directly out of the bottle with them. So as always, I'm using my transfer punch set, and I'm sorry guys I didn't write down the sizes. You can, if you want, follow along and just use your own sizes if you want. This is a really simple design. It's made to look like a flower. It's a 12-point mandala. So the way that works is you do one at the top, one at the bottom, one at each side, and then instead of doing one in between, you do two in between. So we're just kind of filling in that space in between the what is essentially the north, south, east, and west points with two in between. And that makes your 12-point mandala. And then you want to move up a couple sizes. I usually go 2 or 3. And in the same dark gray, you want to nestle one dot in between each of those former dots. And that's how you start growing your mandala. That's all you're going to do is as you move up in size, you just nestle them in between each dot from the previous row. So now we're on to the mid-gray tone, and again putting them in between, making sure when you're going over the vinyl that you get it to cover the vinyl piece. So if you've worked with a stencil, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes when you're on the edge of a vinyl stencil, the paint tends to not want to kind of go around it. So here we've gone up another size, but I'm still in that mid tone. So I'm kind of doing 2 rows per tone in this instance, not including, of course, the center dot. So now we're going to go ahead and take the red, and I have my smallest nail stylus tool, and I'm just barely touching down to the canvas to get little teeny tiny dots in between my my dots that are already there. So I do one above and one below on the first row with the smallest tool. And you want to wait until the paint is just a little dry, that way it doesn't bleed into itself. So here we've moved up a size, and I'm going again in between each of the dots. And in this instance, I'm placing it down and doing both dots at the same time, just because I did have a lot of paint on my tool. So I'm not touching the tool all the way down for the first dot because it was making the dots just a little too big. And I don't do it over the stencil. Oh, here I dropped the canvas and I messed up big time. I messed up a dot, but I was able to fix this. But I don't bring those in-between dots onto the vinyl because I'm going to be peeling that up anyway. So some of the detail work I do go over the vinyl, some of it I don't. So again, bringing another a second layer of dots in between, just for some detail work, some interesting, give it some 3D effect. When we're done, you'll see it almost looks like it's glowing. And then here I've gone up another size in my stylus, and I'm just putting one. I'm not going to put the second one because we're going to do 2 more rows with the lightest shade of gray. So here we're just going in between and just placing a dot in between each one. got up another size to the light gray, and again we're just going to nestle it right in between. So I have a really bad habit where I sometimes put them a little too close and they touch the previous rows, and I'm trying to get better about it, but you know, whatever. So here I went down in size, and I'm doing another red dot in between or underneath or above, whichever way you want to look at it, but I'm doing it smaller just for a little bit of detail, a little bit of interest, a little bit of fun. And I went up in my transfer punch set. This is the last row I'm going to be doing for these dots. So just going all the way around, making sure I load up my tool with paint, but you don't touch your tool to the canvas. And on this one, I'm just placing one dot in between each of those dots from the previous row, just because that's all we have for space. So there you'll see I did put it over the vinyl, because half of the dot is on the vinyl, half of it is on the canvas. So that's just one of those details that when you're doing a stencil painting, you really want to have that detail showing. So this is, I did it even sized dots, and this is real speed. So you can see just how slow and meticulous this process really is. So even dots all the way around for the first row. Okay, this is sped up. So I wish I could dot this fast, but in reality, the whole row took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And the key is just take your time. That way all the dots are the same size and it looks really nice and uniform. So just going all the way around. It's okay if sometimes they touch. You know, nothing's perfect, but it makes for a really cool effect. And then something I forgot to show you guys, get a damp paper towel and cover the paints that you're not using. That way they don't dry out or form a skin. So now we're going to start some petals, and we're going to walk the dots with the silver. And I am starting with my smallest piece from my transfer punch set, just to get a really nice uniform petal. And again, you guys, this pattern is really easy. You can adapt this to any color scheme. You don't have to use vinyl. This looks really pretty just as is and with nothing underneath it. So when I'm starting my petals, I don't know why I always like to paint on the right side. So that's why I'm doing the starting of it upside down. So even though I'm painting on the right side, when you're looking at it head on, it's actually the left side of the petal. So I start it on the right and then I finish it on the right. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. I really hope that makes more sense when I start doing the other side. But walking the dots is probably one of my favorite parts of painting. It's really fun and calming to me. And I always count how many I do. That way I know how many I'm supposed to do, that way they all look nice and uniform. So this is what I was talking about. I always paint on the right hand side when I'm walking the dots. So move up in size in the transfer punch tools, and now I'm in the light gray and just doing my first dot. And then I'm going to take my smallest transfer punch tool and do my second dot that goes on each side of that first dot. So that's just, again, starting the petal, and then I'll use my nail stylus tool to finish the petal out. And you can do this with any size. You can even leave them like this. You don't have to walk the dots down. Even that looks cool. But I had a lot of space to fill, so I wanted to walk them down. So that's what we're doing here. And the only reason I've been doing it over the vinyl is so that I have that space. It's like my space keeper, so that I know the rest of the pattern will look okay as I spread it out. And here we're just closing those petals out. So you can see I started the mandala going dark to light, and I hope you guys can figure out that now the petals are going light to dark. So here we're with the medium gray. So I'm using the same size for the center dot as I did the previous row. And again, the same concept, just starting the top of the petal with a slightly larger tool. And then I'm going to use the smallest tool to do the beginning of the petal on either side. So that's what we're doing right here. Using the smaller tool to get that petal started. And then we'll use a dotting tool once we get to that point there we go. So we use the dotting tool to count the petals down and walk the dots. And there it all goes. And then we'll just go ahead and close out those petals on the other side and finish out that row. And I'm sure you can all figure out by now the next row of the petal is going to be the darkest gray. I like doing it this way because it just gives like almost like a 3D effect to the petals. So I'm sure you can tell I've moved up to a pretty decent sized tool to start the petals out. I wanted these a little bit on the thicker side. So that means the next size or the next part of the petal also gets moved up in size. So that's what I did there. And then to finish out the petals and walk the dots down, I actually chose my largest dotting tool, my nail stylus dotting tool. I didn't load it up a lot with paint, but just enough to get a decent size, you know, a decent amount on there, a decent sized dot, and that's what I'm walking down. And again, I paint on the right hand side. I just realized it today as I was recording this, that's my thing. There we go, just closing out the dots, or excuse me, closing out the petals. So now I've moved on to the silver paint because I realized I didn't have enough of that really in the painting. And I'm putting a medium-sized dot in between each of my petals. Y'all can see I have the stencil at the bottom of my painting instead of the top. I couldn't find a good way to balance the stencil in the middle, so I did it at the bottom, and I don't know, I like the way it looks. So I'm doing a little dot on the bottom of those silver dots, so nestling that right in between each of the petals. And I really like this paint because it dries really shiny. It's almost like a chrome effect once it's dry. And then I'll go ahead and take my medium-sized dotting tool, and I'm just doing 2 dots. Find the center of your painting and work your way out that way. That's the easiest way to keep your lines from getting all wonky. So then I move down to a smaller dotting tool, and I'm walking out just a couple more dots from those silver little guys. And then I'm taking my smallest stylus, I'm taking some red, and I'm walking 3 dots out on each of the 4 corners. And Viola, it's done. Ta-da! And I've been using an X-Acto knife to just kind of pry up the corner of my stencils, and then I've been using it to pull it up, but this one was giving me a little bit of a hard time. So drum roll please. I don't know, however you want to do the drum roll in your head. And there is our negative space Deathly Hallow symbol. I love it. I absolutely love the way it came out. So I erased the pencil lines with an eraser, and I started to cover it with Liquitex varnish. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.